Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's call the Richmond City Council meeting of Monday, June 24th, 2024 to order. We have a motion on the minutes. Discussion, all those in favor, any opposed? That is carried. And Madam Clerk, any agenda additions or deletions?
None, your worship.
Okay, we have a motion to resolve into committee of the whole to hear delegations on items on the agenda. All those in favor, opposed, carried. So we do have one pre-registered delegation, then we'll go see who else wants to speak to us. So we'll go to Brad Dorr on item 16th. Is he here? Okay. Do you want to come on down? And just for the sake of everybody else, when you come as a delegation, please have a seat. Introduce yourself, tell us the item you want to speak to, and you've got 5 minutes.
Speaking to item number 16 on the agenda, the zoning bylaw.
Please pull in the mic.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, item number 16 with regards to the small-scale multi-unit. My name is Brad Dory. I'm both a Richmond resident and a residential home designer. I've designed hundreds of homes, a large majority of them in Richmond. I currently have 17 projects on hold and at least 8 more ready to start, like literally tomorrow. I could be designing many small-scale multi-unit housing projects. But as bylaw 10573 is written today, I have 16 out of my 17 projects that will go to single-family dwelling, and the others are likely to do the same thing and just go to single-family dwelling. For our projects to be built as small-scale multi-unit housing, there needs to be 3 key factors achieved: feasibility, constructability, and incentive to do it. Under feasibility, stratification is a must for financial feasibility. Very few projects will be built as a rental only. No stratification was the #1 reason clients wouldn't move forward with small-scale multi-unit housing when the bylaw was first issued, and we'd had a chance to go over it. From a designer's perspective, without stratification, single-title landowners who are, potentially going to build under it, they're going to want to build large single-family homes with minimal rental only as required by the bylaws, outside of maybe the occasional project that gets built purely as a rental project. Versus as a designer designing for stratified properties, these are well-designed, evenly distributed units that are competing against townhomes and condos. It's a much different game to design for a stratified property versus a single title holder building rental. Under constructability, refer to the PDF that was included in my request to delegate. I don't know if you've got it to put up on the screens. I have it here as well. On the left, the dreaded LUC house. I think we're all familiar with the LUC house. It not only had greater heights, but it didn't have to conform to the residential vertical lot width envelope. It made a huge difference in the massing of those homes. On the right of this PDF, you'll see that this is bylaw 10573's 9-meter maximum height. It's not realistically buildable. If you're able to, I don't know if it printed out for you very well, but if you're able to, look closely at it, it's a 9-meter height that goes from grade. And by the time you put in a 9-foot ceiling height on the main floor, an 8-foot ceiling height on the second floor, when you go to the partial story, you have to drop your dormers 0.5 meter below the ridge of the roof. You end up with about 6.5 feet of vertical height livable space up there. Theoretically doable, but not really livable. I don't know if anybody's built one. I've never designed one to be built. It just doesn't work. Now, when it comes to the partial story on this, I'm referring to it as a partial story. Half stories are a common and very distinct designing tool. As currently written, if you refer to CNCL 376, I don't know if you'll be able to dig through there quickly, this is the clause about the half story as it's written. This clause will drastically reduce the massing for neighboring properties regardless of the floor area percentage on it. Designers will, we want to get that half story as big as possible. We'll be encouraged to lengthen the building footprint to get as much up in that 50% half story as we can, i.e. building a bigger house, making use of that 5-meter height on it. If you take out the half story definition of it, change the name, call it a third story, leave it exactly as it is written, but call it a third story, take the 50% out of it, you'll get the same reduction in massing, but we'll be able to tighten everything up and have a better built out partial story to it. It's just simply changing the name on it. The last part of this for us, incentive. We got to incentivize builders, developers to build this product. The flex space offered in the bylaw change, it's going to be used almost entirely as garage space. We live in a very car-centric community. Even those without vehicles require garage space for bicycles and other, E-type transportation. Developers, builders, they want garages. When I'm designing stuff, they want garages, and garages need to be 25 to 40 square meters. You times that by 3, you've eaten up your 80 square meters. You're only looking at a 0.55 versus a 0.6. That's only 250 square feet difference on it. As mentioned in John Hopkins' June 20th, 2024 memorandum, to build a small-scale multi-unit development with stratification is estimated to cost about 15% more on it. We need a better incentive to get the builders to sway in that direction on it. We've designed lots of stuff in other communities at a 1 FAR, works very well.
Sure.
Okay.
Please sum up.
Pardon me?
Please sum up.
Okay, we've done stuff, I'm working on stuff now, I've worked on stuff over the years at a 1 FAR, and it's worked well, but there's gotta be a minimum of like a 0.8 or something to make it worthwhile to go to the small scale multi-unit. Otherwise, my clients are just gonna tell me, build a single family dwelling, don't bother with a small scale multi-unit.
All right, we've got a couple questions. Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for your presentation. I just have a question about the diagrams that had the dreaded tall ones on the left and the buildable in the middle.
Yeah.
Why does the bottom floor have to be 9 feet? Why can't it be 8?
It could be 8, but if you look at any product on the market today, anything that anybody's building, whether it's condos, townhouses, houses, I get personally tired of people asking me to design 10-foot ceilings in single family, because I'm like, you don't need it, you can get away with 9. But I would never design for 8. It's just not done in today's market.
It's not trendy.
Yeah, well, it's not like a sellable product at the end of the day. And even if you went to an 8-foot ceiling, you'd be at to a 7.5 on the upper story, the partial story, which is still less than desirable.
Why would the top one have to be half less?
Well, it's currently at 6.5 right now. If you drop the main floor to an 8 instead of a 9,
Or you're talking about the non-buildable?
Pardon me?
On the non-buildable side you're talking about? Yeah, no, I just mean on your buildable one. If it was 8, 8, 8, then you could get 3 full stories, and it might be a little bit lower in height, which there might be appetite for on this council. That's why I was just asking if it was possible.
In the buildable one, yeah. I mean, you could theoretically build 8, but you never see it.
It's not the current product that's marketable. Okay, thanks.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thanks very much for your presentation coming forward tonight. Just a quick question. You were alluding to it about building single family. How do we incentivize for every new building that may come along, and what you've drawn here, to include a secondary suite of 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom that might be available for rental and or extended family, et cetera, in the design of a typical home?
If we're building stratification and you still want a rental suite, is that what the question that you're looking for?
It could be stratified, could not be.
To incentivize the rental on it, what I run into when I'm designing is if it's rental, the game is to give bare minimum that you have to. Very few projects. I very much advocate for it. I don't like our minimum 35 square meters that we have right now. We see a lot of suites in new builds under the current zoning bylaw. They are 355 square feet. That's the minimum requirement. They got a door facing a fence and nothing else on it. I think you might have seen in previous presentations, I like to try and do a 2-story suite if I can, because I say that creates livable space. But when designing, when I was saying that designing for rental versus designing for stratification. When I design for stratification, oh my God, it's like, this has to be perfect. You're competing against, the big developers building the townhouses. We want, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. We want outdoor space for everybody. Once it's rental, it's like, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't create the same quality when it's a rental design versus a stratification.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Heed.
Thank you. Could you bring the diagram up again, please? So when I look at your diagram here and look at the buildable one, which is the one that interests me because we're going to the 10-meter height, which is certainly workable. But this is a standalone one, or could this be, for example, if you're building them together, the way you've described this diagram?
Could which be built together?
If you're not separating, you're not having separate buildings, you're having them 3 linked together, or 3 different units linked together, albeit strata.
This buildable height, like under the current proposed bylaw that you're voting on tonight, as long as the buildings are within the building envelope, they would all be principal buildings and be of the same height requirement. I think currently if we're going to go to an accessory dwelling unit type thing that's in a rear yard, it's going to be a development permit. I don't think we even have specific guidelines at this point on what a building.
So when I look at the roof of, again, the buildable one, which interests me, what would the roof design be? Would all 3 or all 4 be the exact same?
You'd have flexibility in what you're doing in the overall design of it. I would envision that when we're building 3 units, like right now, I'm doing quite a few of them, and the typical 3-unit build right now is 2 units in the main house and a coach house in the back. So designing for 3 units in one building, because right now under the current proposal, I'm not going to see a lot of uptake from builders who want to go through a whole development permit process just to get the accessory dwelling unit. It's going to be challenging. It's going to take some creativity to make that work. I might likely see where you have 2 primary units and 1 smaller sort of micro unit being done in it, because you got to fit it all in one building envelope to make it work.
Okay, and my last question is, it relates to the FAR. And I believe you would live with 0.8 or 0.88, but you prefer 1.
I've done designs under both 1s and 0.8s. 0.8s, you can just sort of get it in there. When you're trying to design for a stratifiable, saleable product, you want to aim for 12 to 1,500 square feet. You're getting 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms in it, like a townhouse, and you want to get 2 of those units and then see what you can get for the 3rd one. You get under 0.8 and it gets hard to get those numbers in. These sketches that you're looking at here, it says down in the corner, 33-foot wide lot. I took 3 houses I've designed and stripped them down to simplify them to show you to them. So these are actual Schooner Court, 4th Avenue, like these are houses in Richmond that I've, simplified to show you what happens with them.
Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the drawings. We like drawings here. Okay, to be economically viable for your average homeowner who's decided to potentially subdivide their lot into 3 or 4, is it not true that, I'm assuming their kids want to live in one house and maybe they live in another and maybe they rent out the 3rd, but is it enough to stratify, left and right, so they can sell one and keep one? Because the one that they'd be selling should pay for everything else.
So stratifying, say, 2 out of 3 units on the property?
Let's say we allowed for 2 stratifications on a lot, and you can build as many secondary suites as you want in most cases. But the homeowner, I'm talking about your average homeowner, could now sell one for, what, $1.5, $1.8 million. Would that be economically viable for them to then stay in the other new houses?
I've got a couple of custom home builds, like out of the 24 that are on my plate right now. There's 3 custom homes and 21 builder builds on it. The builder builds, they want stratification right off the board, stratify everything, sell it off. Nobody wants to try and sell rental from that financial viability perspective. When it comes to the custom home builds, the stratification issue in that very sort of smaller segment of it is not as critical. When I talked about 16 out of the 17 being, no-go, the one that was a go, it's a multi-generational family. They'll build whatever they can under whatever rules come out. They're just happy that they're not doing a single-family dwelling with a secondary suite when it's really 2 adult boys that are going to own this property at the end of the day. So for homeowners, I don't really sort of see that viability as much of wanting them wanting to sell off a piece of the puzzle. I have heard feedback that they would like stratification so that if, say, one adult child takes it with their spouse and something were to go south with the relationship with the spouse, that they're not owning the whole property, they're only owning their own piece of the property. So I see stratification as being it's essential across the board on just about everything. It may not get exercised in those custom home builds, but for the large majority of my projects, they're dead in the water if we don't have it.
See, I just a follow-up question through the chair. So the reason I'm looking at it from 2 different lenses. Developers, they want to stratify the whole darn thing so they can sell them all off. I get that. I'm more interested in the homeowner who's trying to accommodate their adult children and subsequently says, well, if I develop it into 2 stratified lots, I sell off one, and then I've got all these other units. I just pulled this off the internet today, and one of those, quarter houses that are on the main roads, so there's like a front-back duplex, $1.649 million. And if it's 4 years old, you still get $1.55 million. So for the average homeowner who's not looking to make a huge profit, they're just looking to cover their costs, get their kids into a home, and live happily ever after. Wouldn't selling one stratified lot be enough?
It may be enough, but the more options available to them, the better. I would express it as where for example, in the custom home build. Multi-generational scenarios that I'm seeing, the limited few of them. Another one just off of number 3 road that's looking to do it. They would like all 3, I think the parents are going to take one unit. They might design that one a little bit bigger because it's custom. And then the eldest child is getting the larger unit, and the other child would take, if we could do a coach house, that's what they would love to do, but that's not on the table right now. So they would want ownership divided up amongst all 3 of them. I haven't had a custom homeowner come to me yet and say, I want to sell half the property to pay for it at this point.
And I think in a situation such as you mentioned, a case-by-case basis for stratification has merit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in, and thanks for creating such an easy-to-understand visual for this. So if I could just summarize what you've told us then, instead of calling it 2.5 stories, if we called it the 3rd story with a setback and allow it to go to 10 meters, then it allows it to be buildable. Is that what I heard?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then what I also heard is reducing the garage from 50 meters to 40 meters isn't helpful, because if you're building like a triplex, everyone's going to need some garage anyway.
On the garage part of it, what I see in the flex space as being identified as like the floor area bonus to what we have here. When I'm designing for multifamily, it's give us as many garage, like we want a garage space for every unit if we can make it work. And when we do garages at a bare minimum, 25 square meters, if you were doing a duplex, ideally you would have 2 40 square meter garages, 2-car garages serving each piece of the duplex. That 80 square meters is gone. So I don't see it as a floor area bonus from a design perspective. The only floor area bonus that I see is going from a 0.55 to a 0.6 on the first 5,000 square feet. That's only 250 square feet. That's
okay. So we need to increase the floor area ratio and permit enough garage for everybody to have some
Yeah,
garage.
ideally, there would be, a floor area per unit garage exclusion, or you could leave the flex space the way it is. I mean, we're at the 11th hour from my perspective, and I'm trying drastically to beg you to give me something that I can turn these 24 projects into, 70-plus multi-unit type dwellings, as opposed to just more single-family dwellings for the elite. If you left the flex space in there, if you were willing to change it on the fly, yeah, we need an exclusion per unit. Something a little more flexible. There's a lot of rigidity right now in the parking allocation and driveway formation on it, but I haven't had enough time to try and figure out every scenario and how it works on it. But on the partial story part of it, that is a very common zoning parameter half story that's used. When you take away that definition of a half story, third story houses often have limitations. They're only 70% of the floor area below, or they're only 80% of the floor area below, but you still get to call it 3 stories as opposed to 2.5, which somebody who works with zoning all the time, it's a big distinction.
Okay,
and it
then,
gives us a lot more flexibility from a
but then
design
it still isn't as overwhelming to the neighbors because it has that step in, if you
The
will.
vertical envelope, you leave that in there, just,
It's pretty close visually.
well, the vertical envelope, when you look at the LUC houses, they didn't have a vertical envelope, and they were, 35 feet in height, 10.67 meters in height on it. They could go straight up as almost a box, right? They were designed with 10, 9, and 9, like floor heights on it. They are big square buildings. There is great language in this zoning bylaw proposal that will control massing, but we need to be able to get that peak, and it's really just the peak. It's not like anybody's going to really sort of see this change from 9 to 10. It's the peak that goes up that lets the dormers sit up a little higher, that makes the space livable inside on it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thanks, and through the chair. Thanks for being here, and yeah, very good information. I just want to get a little bit more specific on the different lot size, and I think the number is 3,014, where you can build up to 3, and greater than that square footage, you can build, 4, 5, and perhaps 6. So it might not be your area of expertise, but maybe you can still comment on it. What is the viability, in your opinion, of having rental units mixed in with strata? I understand how strata is necessary to make any building happen at all, but if you had, for instance, 2 strata units and 1 rental unit on the smaller lots, or some combination, maybe with 4, let's say 5 units, if you had 4 strata and 1 rental unit, whether it's a locked-in rental unit within the building or whether it's a separate building that I think Councillor Heed was talking about. Do you have an opinion on that, or is that outside of your area of expertise?
No, I think that comes out a lot when builders, developers, homeowners are coming to me about what are we going to do, how are we going to slice it, and, make it work on it. I personally, my experience is that we're going to be building. People talk about 4 and 6 units. They're going to be 3s for the most part. They are going to be 3s everywhere. That's all that I see getting done for the most part on it. Maybe you get to a 4th on it. If you're lucky, if you got a really big lot, maybe we get to 4 dwellings on it. The opportunity to have one of those 4 be a rental suite within, say, 3 other stratified ones could be the opportunity that maybe you have 2 more nicer units, and the one that is maybe not as desirable has a micro suite within it that gives it that revenue opportunity on top of its stratification. I could see it being an opportunity.
Okay, thank you for that.
I just want to clarify something you just said. So when we're talking about this stratification, you're not talking about going up to 6 strata units in one of these buildings. Probably 3 is about the limit.
I don't think I'll see a 6-unit design. If we come back and reconvene in a year or 2 from now as a follow-up on what's happening, I'll come up and speak if I've actually designed a 6-unit thing. It's never going to happen.
Right. So my point is 3 would suffice.
3 stratifications per property on it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Are there any other parties who wish to speak to us on items on the agenda tonight? Yes, sir. And is there anybody else looking to speak to us? Okay, so this will be the last speaker. Yes, sir, please introduce yourself and tell us what's on your mind.
Kush Banaj on the same item on the agenda. And my comments, I'm going to limit them to very high level because unlike Brad, I'm not an expert on single family. My experience is limited to building 4 single family homes in the last 45 years. But one of the things I want to comment on is this whole notion of 2.5 stories and 3 stories, because it does impact not only the single family, but some of it also just goes into the multifamily. I happen to have the misfortune right now of having a 35-unit townhouse complex that we're building. When I bought it, it was already pre-designed, and it has 2.5-story units. And believe me, if you want to experience pain and expense, you can come and see us, and we'll show you exactly what the real impact of a 2.5-story building is. The difference to the average person when you're looking at the building from the street is almost not perceptible. It's not even noticeable. So I'm not sure why and how it came about, but I can tell you anywhere else right now, everyone is looking at 3 stories, 10 meters, 11 meters is a very commonly accepted standard. Even though I don't do single family, a friend of mine just sent me a note and she asked me, she said, can you help us out with this? They're inheriting a lot in South Surrey, in the White Rock area, that's 5,000 square feet. So I took the courtesy myself and spent $1,000 on it. I said, let's just see under the Surrey's proposed rules what you could build on it. And under the proposed FAR, which they just did last week, 5,000 square foot lot, 50 by 100, you're allowed to build a duplex on it, which is about 5,000 square feet. But you're also allowed to build a garden suite in the back, which can be up to 800 square feet on 2 levels. The front buildings are limited to 3 stories, and I didn't get into the details of whether they're allowing stratas and all that. I think from what I understand they are, because this particular family is this is going to be split between the 2 kids, and actually the father is going to be living in the garden suite, which to me is it's a great way to for this family to move on to the next step. And I just think, sometimes in trying to look for the right answer, I just hope we don't make a compromise that's worse than I guess the solution we should be looking for. Mixing up stratas and rentals and stuff like that, I really don't see what the advantage of that is going to be. My suggestion is look at strata, and you can see the results of stratas today. I mean, look at condo buildings, how many of those units are sold and are actually used as rentals. And I can foresee the same kind of thing happening with single-family homes. As Brad said, I think most likely in Richmond, because of the lot configurations and the lack of lanes, I think you're going to be restricted to most likely 3, maybe 4 units on a big lot on a corner. I don't think you're going to see 6 units on a typical, even the larger lots. It's just not viable based on the configurations that are being proposed right now. The last comment I want to make is maybe a higher level, and that is, I think Richmond can't act in isolation. You have to keep in mind what's happening in the regional context with the surrounding municipalities. We are an island, but in this case, we're not an island to ourselves, because whether they're builders or investors or developers, they do have a choice of going elsewhere. I think if you create bylaws and stuff that are so restrictive and make things so difficult and are not financially viable, people will go where there is a choice to potentially build something that does make sense and is viable. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Glanders, you had a question?
I have a question. Sure. The example, hi, thank you for speaking. The example you gave in Surrey, is that an area of Surrey where you're allowed to have basements?
I believe, yes, all the South Surrey, you're allowed to do basements.
And so I was just wondering, when in a community where you can have basement, is it 3 stories above the basement up to 10 or 11 meters
Yes.
that you can have? So it's actually 4?
No, in this case, you're being allowed 3 stories above grade to a maximum of 11 meters.
And so then you can have some basement below grade as well, right?
You can have some basement
So they've
below.
got a lot more flexibility.
And I think Richmond, if the opportunity was created, I think there's an opportunity for Richmond to be really creative and allow something below ground. I know we haven't done that in the past, but you've seen it in the city center for large projects, how it's becoming viable to go down 1, 2, in some cases even 3 levels. I'm not suggesting going down 3 levels, but I think 1 level or half a level is very viable if the right incentive was in place. And I think that's really a missed opportunity in Richmond, where we're sticking to these above-grade garages. We've got all these driveways and garages taking up really what is valuable space, when in fact they could be tucked underground if the right financial incentive was there. And by that, I mean, to me, that the additional space that's created should not be counted as FAR. If you did that, and some jurisdictions around the world have done that, and it's amazing the kind of creativity you've seen in creating that additional space.
Just one follow-up question. The reference to the rental suites, there's a bit of like a language thing going on with regards to when we're talking about secondary suites. So it's not that they have to be rented. It's not that you're making a unit on site that is a rental housing where it's that, I'm just talking about reducing, allowing the inclusion of secondary suites in strata units up to the maximum number of units that are permitted on the lot. Is that not an attractive thing to have in a unit because you can use it for a caregiver if you're going to age in place, or it could just be for a large family, or you can rent it out? It's not the same thing as a rental unit.
I personally don't have a problem with that because even the townhouse project we're doing, some of the units do have actually the same rental units. As Brad mentioned, they're fairly compact. They're only about 350 square feet, but they're intended exactly for that use. And I can't speak to the single family, but in the multifamily, the few times we've built those units in, there has been demand for those for exactly the kind of circumstance you described, for a caretaker or an older child that wants to still be in the house but still have a side door to themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Day has a question.
Sorry, we will let you go, just one
No,
more
no.
question.
Well, happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Panache, for coming forward. So you were just saying that you foresee that on Richmond lots, it would probably be a maximum to 3 or 4 units. Is that what you said?
That's my understanding based on some designs that I've seen here, and I've had the good fortune of being able to travel a bit and see what some of the other cities have done, and that's
Yeah.
really what you see a lot of times.
You know, I think a lot of people could live with that. Even in my neighborhood, they'd go, yeah, that's okay. Most people have basement suite anyhow. So my question is, when you are talking $1.65 million for these new half duplexes, people need a mortgage helper. And I think, my question is, if it was a lot and you built 2 front back duplexes, maybe one has a suite, one doesn't, if you could sell off one and then reduce your cost as a homeowner, do you think that 2 stratifications is enough?
2 strata units.
2 strata units, sorry.
I don't quite follow how you'd be able to pull that off, because, I mean, if you create a complex with 3 units, there would be 3 strata titled units, and I would assume a person would be able to sell any one of those 3.
Yeah.
And to your question, I mean, I agree with you, just creating duplexes side by side, I mean, they are unfortunately in today's market still quite expensive. But I think given the flexibility, and I think with some of the designs you'll see some very creative designs where people will create smaller units because, I mean, they're very marketable. There's a lot of people that just want a 1-bedroom with a little garden suite and separate access and a little backyard. And I think that will basically replace your 1-bedroom condo. I think that's what you're going to see.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wanting to speak to us on the item, any items on the agenda? All right, may I have a motion to rise and report? All those in favor, opposed, carried. That brings us to the consent agenda, and I'll just recite what's on there. We have the committee minutes, the Stevenson Transit Exchange, the TransLink public engagement results, the land use applications for first reading, and they go to public hearing July 15th. The first one, the only one, is 12-800 and 12-910, number 2 road, the zoning text amendment to the AG1 zone to permit a glass greenhouse with concrete footings. Richmond Youth Advisory Committee proposed 2024 work program, the draft childcare strategy 2024 to 2034. We have a housing agreement for affordable housing and all the permutations at 6071 Azure Road. We have Kittywood Drive to the traffic calming update, the North Dyke upgrades concept plan for Linus Lane to number 2 road. And finally, the Richmond Water Quality and Conservation Report 2023. May I have a motion to move those by consent? Adopt them by consent. So that's moved and seconded. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will be in support of everything on the consent agenda tonight. I'll just speak briefly to 6 of them. Item number 7, that's the Stevenson Transit Exchange, Transit Public Engagement results. So they did go out, get the information, and staff took a look at it and is not recommending that we support the alternate location. So there was a large number of residents who let us know their thoughts on it. So some of them will rest easy with this decision, but we will, or we have asked our staff who are part of our Transportation Committee to look into the existing situation and find ways to increase pedestrian safety, reduction of congestion, pollution, and impacts to the businesses. Item number 8, that's the application for a glass greenhouse with concrete footings on number 2 road. We learned that this is the first application since the new restrictions on using concrete in agricultural zones since 2018. This one is interesting design. It's not just concrete footings like we might think of, like a post and pad or post and form where they'd be blocks of concrete every so often. This is a continuous concrete structure. And hopefully it lasts forever. If not, it is in some of the highest quality soils in Richmond, so they'll have to work extensively to get rid of all of the concrete debris. But also tomorrow at our Parks and Rec Committee, we're getting a presentation from Kwantlen Polytechnic University, who's been very successful with greenhouses that don't use concrete footings, such as their slide height tunnels and their passive solar dome on the Garden City lands. Item number 10, that's the draft childcare strategy for the next decade. And in there, it's a great report. In there includes lots of data, graphs and such. And one that caught my eye is I have children going into this age bracket known as the school age, and that there is a high demand on that before and after school care. But part of it is out of our hands because we don't decide the elementary school locations and the ability for those sites, those facilities to house after school or before school care. Item number 12, that's the Kittiwake Drive traffic calming update. If you haven't checked them out yet, there's some asphalt speed cushions that are now going to become a permanent fixture in the neighborhood and might be found in other areas to come. What was to note, and thankfully traffic studies were able to identify that of the 85% of vehicles going along that route before the traffic calming, 85% were going 67 in a 50 zone. And with this installation, we've reduced that to below 50. So that's great to continue. Item number 13, that's the North Dyke Upgrade Concept Plan, Linus Lane to number 2 road, just a small section there. And we got some confirmation that from staff that this dike work will not impact the intertidal zone, which is quite a wide section. Not all of our existing dikes have that much of intertidal zone between the high and the low tide mark that spreads out and provides so much place. So it's great to hear that our coming rock wall concrete, granite rocks will not cover all of that space. And I guess finally, the last one I'll just mention is item number 14, Richmond Water Quality Conservation Report for 2023. And the one stat that really jumps out at me, which doesn't impact me so much because I haven't drank out of a plastic water bottle in, I don't know, decade, 2 decades maybe, is that City of Richmond water costs about 3 cents and store-bought water in Richmond costs about $5.69 equivalent. So great water that we have, and let's drink it from the tap and not from the plastic bottle. Thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'll only be talking about 2 items on the agenda tonight, and I support everything on it. I do want to go back to the water. If you look on our page 254, when our numbers have gone down and our residents have gone up, water decreased by 14%, and our population increased by 32%. Sitting on the board of Metro Vancouver and listening to other members of the community, one of the benefits of that, not only staff, but the residents taking advantage of, is the fact that we have water meters. It's amazing how many communities, Your Worship, don't have water meters out there and have no intention of getting them, of putting them on the label. A number of us were on council. You recall when we put the water meters in, a bit of controversy, and now we're going to put them in an all-new apartment and what have you. It's one of the best moves that Richmond ever made. And I hope Metro Vancouver will follow suit because it's proven that water is conserved and you pay for what you use. I want to thank staff for when you talk about water, what we've got in here, the purest water in the world, to be quite frank with you, 99.99. If you look at the number of samples taken by our staff each year, it's well over 2,074 water samples collected in 2023, just to keep the purity of the water, to make sure of it. A number of us will mention years ago when the water was brown and it came through, and we weren't too happy about that. So things have come a long way. Kudos to the water department. And the fact too, our outdoor fountain partner, our water fountains, I hope we continue to put them into all our parks so that we can use them, and our dog off-leash parks and our dog parks as well, so that we can continue to promote. The other thing, Your Worship, I wanted to mention, and the reason I asked about suites and what have you tonight, is our item number 11. I've been following this one along for quite some time on 6071 Azure Road, where the community is able to receive 100% rental in a building. 330 rental suites to go out to the community. 50 lemur, 110 moderate ones, and 170 market rental. This is a way, one of the ways that we've got to continue to promote to get rental housing in here. We're not going to get it by force. We're not going to get it by what Victoria's pushed across the road to us, and that we're going to get it by cooperation with development and working together, giving the appropriate density, the appropriate things, and working with it. 330 to be open hopefully in a number of years, Your Worship, is no small feat. And I challenge any developers out there to look at this, and also council to look at how we got it and the fact that it's here. So thank you to the developer. And in this case, this particular developer, I'm told, wants to offer the units, and he's looking after the 50 that are there now, offer first of all to our first responders, RCMP, fire rescue ambulance, our hospital, our teachers, so that Richmond people who work here and can live here. And that's how he's going to do it. I hope we can work together with him to see that he's able to set up a consortium to offer it to our people in our community. So, Your Worship, with that, I'll be supporting everything.
You, Councillor Heed.
Yes, I just have one question for staff on item number 11. We seem to be introducing, well, to me, it's a new term. I just want the definition of what they mean by modern market rental.
Through Your Worship to Councillor Heed. So the moderate market rental are based on BC Housing's household income limits. So that would be the cost structure. It's higher than lemur. It's geared largely to moderate income households.
Do you have a range?
Yes, just one moment.
I think it's on page 168. I think.
Yes, through Your Worship. It's on page 201 of your agenda at the very top, eligible tenant. This is the household income limit that would apply to moderate market rental. And then the permitted rent is on page 202.
And this would be a number that BC Housing has come up with? And I'm not asking you, I'm just going to, just in case you know, based on what?
Yes, through Your Worship to Councillor Heed, that's correct. It's based on annually published BC Housing's household income limits.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair. Just some comments on a couple of items. First is a Stevenson Bus Exchange, which we have heard about, but we had very good public engagement on that issue. The respondents were 90% Richmond and 80% from Stevenson, so that's pretty localized knowledge. The one issue I think that still remains is the corner clearance issue, and I think that'll be brought up at committee because, as anybody who lives around here knows, when they park right up to the lanes, it's a bit of a hazard, or right up to the corner of a street. So maybe we can increase the clearance for them when they're parking. The second item I want to just comment on, and I have a question for staff, is the draft childcare strategy. And this is a very comprehensive report as well. There's an 82% satisfaction survey among people participating in it. So the consultation was extensive. And the question I have about it, though, is we hear a lot about $10 a day daycare. And then when we overlay that with the preschool, the things we have in community centers and private preschools, kind of the not quite level playing field for them to be able to compete with a $10 a day. So can you just comment on, I know you did at committee as well, but for the public, comment on what strategies are taking place and what methods are being used to kind of mitigate that difference and bring it closer together?
Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, the federal and provincial governments who provide the funding and policy structure for the $10 a day program did initially prioritize support for working parents. And so their priority target audience was childcare providers with full day childcare for children under the age of 5. They are now gradually beginning to expand that to include part-time care like before and after school care and preschool programs. Currently, there are 14 preschool programs in the province out of 147 that are in Metro Vancouver that are participating in the $10 a day program. The majority of those currently are part of multi-service organizations who also offer full day childcare. In the transition to a universal system, there's always going to be some programs that get accelerated through this process and others who need to wait a little bit longer, and preschool programs are the one that currently is waiting a little bit longer.
Yeah, well, it's good to know that it's being worked on because we do have some outstanding programs, particularly at our own community centers. So good to see progress on that. Thank you. The next item I'll just comment on, Councillor McNulty just spoke about it, is the rental development on Azure, and it is 100% rental as we heard. And not to repeat all the other facts that we just heard, but the thing that impressed me about it too is 92% of the units are family friendly, which I believe is 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms or more, and actually some of them are even 4 bedrooms. So that's quite remarkable. So that is a good development. And the last thing I want to comment on through the chair is just the Kittiwake traffic calming. I have heard a lot of positive comments from people in the neighborhood, and I'm going to add on a little piece that isn't exactly part of it, but the flashing yellow lights that were put in at Kittiwake and Number 2 Road, really popular with people because it just makes it that little bit safer. So thank you very much for getting all that done. And with that, Your Worship, I'll be supporting everything on the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. So item 7 on the agenda is the Steveston Transit Bus Exchange, and we're advising TransLink that we are not supporting them moving the buses from Chatham over to pretty much where the daycare is. This was a real community involvement, and I was pleased that TransLink went out and reached out to the public because they made it loud and clear they didn't want this. We just stopped hundreds and hundreds of buses going around that square every single day. And the big thing too was that the buses would have been going right in between Steveston Harbour Authority lands, which is a working harbor with everything from forklifts and boat movers in a very, very small, tight area. Now, what's important is that we are not supporting it, but on page 46, TransLink also advised that they will not proceed without City Council approval. So that's the most important part of this report, is that they're going to back down and we're going to have to find another place to put the buses. I personally think that they could just reschedule them and leave them at the Loop at Steveston and Shell, or at the Loop at the SkyTrain, or at the Loop at Saba Road, or at the Loop at the River Rock Casino. It can't be that hard to reschedule these buses, but we are waiting for TransLink representatives to come and speak to council about this issue in the very near future. Number 8 is Mr. Panash's greenhouse. Very happy to support it. It's going to be 21 feet by 41 feet. And anytime we can promote and help farming in Richmond, I'm going to support that, especially since it doesn't have a big concrete slab. It's just ground-based. Number 9 is the Youth Advisory Committee proposed work program. I am very fortunate to be the liaison to this brand new committee of really exciting young adults that are incredibly intelligent, very engaged, and they're going to provide council with a lot of really relevant information. So I'm looking forward to working with them. It's been spoken about with the number 11, which is a housing agreement. And yeah, I'm really thrilled to pieces that we're going to have many more family-friendly units. And the market rentals will be a lot. They'll be over about $3,000 a month for a 3-bedroom, but the moderate rent will be $2,150 for a 3-bedroom, and the lemur will be $1,480. It's a lot for someone my age who paid a lot less rent when I was a kid, but that's a bargain in today's world. So that's going to help a lot of families. I did have a question of staff on this one, though, because as we work through, and later on the agenda, Bill 44, and we're going to have densified housing forced upon us by the province. We have done a really good job in Richmond, building rental, building a lemur, building affordable units. There are quite a few projects in the hopper for rental, purpose-built rental buildings. Can you just make a wild guess how many new units we can expect? I'm thinking about the one by the Oval and the one on Westminster Highway, and there's one potentially at Cook Road and Garden City. We got a lot of rentals coming our way, don't we?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I can certainly report back to council with those numbers, but we're over 600.
That's a great number. Yeah, thank you very much. Kitty Wake Drive, yeah, the people who lived in that area were loud and clear. The cars were going too fast, so we put in the speed mountain, and it has slowed down incredible the traffic. And I'm really happy when the public write those letters to us, ask us for a change, and then we can actually implement it. So thanks to staff for working with them and making it a seamless process. That's it for me.
Councillor Rao.
I'm going to support everything on the consent agenda, but I want to speak on 2 items. The first one is on the Stevenson Transit Exchange, the TransLink public engagement results. Now, it's very clear that the proposal from TransLink is not being supported by the community. But I'm concerned about what would be the next step on CNCL 49, staff in their report mentioned that TransLink has indicated that they will not be pursuing any further options for an on-street transit exchange should the city is not supportive. So with this result, and then we are telling them that they don't have the support of city and not because of there's no community support. Is TransLink saying that they are not going to do anything further to to look for another alternative to the existing exchange? So they're just sitting on their hands, doing nothing, allowing the current situation, which is very unsatisfactory, to continue. Or they are only saying that they are not going to pursue any further options for on-street transit exchange. So what are they actually talking about? They're not going to do anything further, or they're just not going to look for another on-street transit exchange? And my second part of my question will be, what are we going to do? So we know that the current situation is not important. I mean, it's not acceptable. They're not going to have an alternative site. So what are we going to do? Can we be more proactive to look for a solution?
Mr. B.
Through your worship to Councillor Au, yeah, it's what they're saying. They're not going to look for any further on-street sites within the Steveston area. To be honest, there aren't that many opportunities, and the opportunity presented was probably the best option outside of where it is. So, it's clear the public doesn't want us to move it from where it is to the proposed location, so kind of run out of options for on-street ones.
So there's the second part of my question. So can we be more proactive in saying that, okay, yeah, this is not ideal situation, and maybe further out of the area, can they look for any kind of solutions? Can we work together with them to look for another solution?
Before are adopted, deleting the current number 4 and also deleting the current number 9, which was a direction to permit all the stratification. Now we are permitting that. So let's get that on the floor. So we'll move that. Is it? Second. So that is moved and seconded. Councillor Day.
Yeah, I couldn't support this in committee, and I can't support it today because I don't believe that allowing for 100% stratification is in the best interest of Richmond. You know, we have hundreds and hundreds of, we're doing amazing work here in Richmond. We're building purpose-built rentals by the hundreds. We're requiring basement suites or secondary suites in all new builds of single-family homes. And we heard today from Mr. Dory, who is a professional designer, who stated that 3 stratas would be enough. We also heard from Mr. Panache, a professional builder, been around, that 3 to 4 units is likely what most would be built anyhow. So given that the professionals are giving us such great advice, I have a motion to amend this. May I read that now, Mayor Brody?
Now, this would be an amendment to the new paragraph 4A and B.
Yes, thank you for the help.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the motion to amend the small-scale multi-unit housing bylaw to allow for 2 stratifications for small and medium-sized lots, and 3 stratifications for large-sized lots, and permissive rentals for all new stratifications. That's part 1. Part 2 is for additional strata conversions. Homeowners can submit an application for strata conversion to City Council for approval on a case-by-case basis.
Just before I ask for a seconder on that, I just want to clarify a couple things on it. When you talk about stratification, so it's 2 strata units and 3 strata units, right?
Yeah.
That's what you mean.
Sorry
now,
about that.
you talk about and permissive rentals for all new stratifications. What do you mean? They all have to have?
Well, I mean, I think that we don't want to require rentals. I think that that should be up to the individual owners. Like, as we heard, many of the secondary suites or second dwellings will be occupied by family members, by caregivers, by elderly relatives. So just allowing for permissive rentals gives the new owners flexibility.
Again, I'm wanting to clarify so we make the motion once and then debate it. The last phrase is permissive rentals for all new stratification. I mean, if you have a strata unit, you can rent it out. So do we need that? Or are you talking about a secondary suite or?
You should say and permitted additional secondary suites up to the maximum allowable by the
Well,
province.
okay.
What you said.
I don't think you need to say, Councillor, I don't think you need to say that.
Yeah.
I think all you're doing is mandating the maximum number of strata units.
Yeah.
2 on the small and medium,
Okay, then do
3.
that. Yeah.
Okay, so take out that last phrase, and permissive rentals for all new stratifications.
Gotcha, thank you.
Now, I wonder if you would also consider in your motion that if it goes through, that it be reviewed at the end of the year.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay,
yeah,
review after 6 months.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the motion to amend. Is it seconded? So that's moved and seconded. Councillor Day, did you want to add anything?
Yes, Bill 44 is basically going to turn every lot in Richmond into a land use contract house. And we saw from Mr. Dory's drawings how unappealing that was to most people. By limiting stratifications, we can really focus on the homeowners. And I'm thinking about the elderly couple or the couple our age that have adult children that would like to get into the market, and it's just too expensive. And by allowing limited stratification, they can get into the market, but that the parents could still sell one of the units like this one for $1.649 million. Well, that pays for a lot of building, and I believe that if we tweak this slightly, we're going to make a significant difference. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that basically all of the guidelines set down by Bill 44 are just that, guidelines. And we've been told by staff that we have to consider them, that we're not required to follow all the guidelines because they're not rules, they're just guidelines. And so given that Richmond is a unique community, we're doing everything we can to build higher density around transit hubs, around community existing malls, and of course, major densification near SkyTrain. We need a made in Richmond solution, and I don't believe what is on the table is going to help the average homeowner. It will certainly help developers who can turn around and sell these strata units and make a small fortune on each and every lot, but it's not going to help the average Richmondite, and I think that's who we're here to represent first and foremost. And I believe that if we do this, permissive rentals, allow the owners to do what they need to do, it's going to be far more effective. And I think that with a few little tweaks, and hopefully after the election in the fall, we can work with the province to make it even better. Because the way it's written right now, it's, some of the guidelines are they just don't fit Richmond, because we don't have basements, we don't have 3-story, half of it under the ground, because of our water table. So I think by making this difference, we might be able to appease the province, buy some time, see where this takes us, and then let's look at it again in 6 months or 12 months and go from there. Thank you.
Councillor Liu, on the amendment.
Thank you, Worship. I won't be supporting the amendment. I think it's important to give people the opportunity to make their own decisions. I don't really understand why we're so keen to have people living in our neighborhoods who are paying other people's mortgages rather than their own. So when we look at something being a mortgage helper, you moved into a place that you can't quite afford, you need a mortgage helper, so you're moving somebody into your house that's going to help pay your mortgage. That's the whole point of a mortgage helper. When you separate the titles, if you have one big house, and if it goes over $3 million, now you get additional school tax on the whole building, if I'm correct, for your home taxes. If you split it up, grandma lives in her own place, not only does she get the homeowner's grant, she gets the additional homeowner's grant because she's older. The family gets their homeowner's grant, the other family gets their homeowner's grant. When I hear things about, oh, it's not affordable, 1.6 million, that might not be your starter house. That might be the one you've worked your way up to. So maybe you started with the one-level garden suite in your own neighborhood that you grew up in, that you wanted to stay in with your parents nearby, and you get to start there, and you start going to war on your mortgage, and then you get into your next place, and then you get married to someone, you want a bigger place, and you still want to stay in your neighborhood, and you can, because there's something else available in that next step up. And maybe 1.6 isn't available to the first people, but maybe you've been in a townhouse for the last 15 years and you've saved up and now you can move into a duplex and spread it out. But a 3-bedroom duplex versus your 3-bedroom townhouse isn't necessarily a step up. If you can get that extra FAR, and I would support extra FAR, now you can have a 4-bedroom and you have enough space for your stepkids and your dog and whatever else you're going to have in your house and your kids and everybody else. I think we also need to be allowing some garages too, but mostly I think we need to be able to stratify so that it's actually more affordable to people. We also have staff, they wrote up here, it said, stratification of all SMU units provides more attainable ownership units compared to larger townhouse developments and city center apartments. It's in our report right here. So if we're thinking about what creates affordability, rental is one avenue and it's a thing, but I think most people dream of having a house. They don't dream of having a rental. They dream of having a home that they own, that they have their name on, and it's their opportunity to start saving for their own future and for their next step.
Councillor Heed.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions for the mover, or through you, the Mayor, maybe you'll be able to clarify this. When we talk about this second part of the case-by-case basis, what are we referring to on a case-by-case basis? If someone wants to exceed the 3 strata units, they would have to come back to council, so we're not actually giving them the pre-zoning like Bill 44 was or intended us to do. we're actually making them come back and go through a zoning bylaw change again. Am I correct in assuming that?
Staff,
Councillor Day,
yeah, it says,
I think that's the nature of your amendment, isn't it?
yeah, so it's in our motion, sorry, it's in our memo from Mr. Hopkins that it's an option for, just trying to find it here, sorry, both alternatives. Yeah, okay, so for all other situations where stratification contains an existing dwelling and an addition of a new secondary suite and/or coach house, city approval is required, and the property owner would need to submit an application for strata conversion, which requires council approval. Basically, it gives us a way to do checks and balances.
I think you've answered the question. Councillor Heath, back to you.
Yes, and I'll go with the second one, but I do have clarification from staff based on the memo there. When we talk about the options, were they part of the guidelines, or was it just something that staff came up with?
Through your worship to Councillor Heed, the alternatives or options in the memo were not based on the guidelines. Those are based on staff options. That's correct.
Thank you. And to the case-by-case basis, so that's what you're referring to where we would actually come back. So and I'm not going to be supporting this, Mayor, and there's a couple of reasons why. I think the permissive rentals, I think that's a very sound position, but why should we be limiting these, could you let me finish? Why should we be limiting the stratas here and trying to say that no, if not this, if you go over this, this is what you have to do. If you go over this, this is what you have to do on the rentals. Let them decide whether they want to rent them out or whether they want to actually sell them. So I won't be supporting the amendment.
Councillor Glanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, there is no prescription for rentals. The sentence of permissive rentals was taken out. So all the motion says is we are going to allow for 2 stratifications on small and medium-sized lots and 3 stratification for large lots. If people want to build up to their 4 or 6 that the province allows, they can do that in additional secondary suites if they want to. But this proposal is allowing stratification of 2 or 3 lots. And the reason I'm supporting this is because I've been looking at the Richmond housing market for a long time, as we all are. I've been talking to homeowners for years, people that want to be able to transfer some equity to their kids and or seniors who want to downsize and age in place and build a caregiver suite. I think that's what we were kind of trying to accomplish with the rent to tenure. That's getting thrown out the window because I think it's really unrealistic that anything will get built if you can't sell some units to get some equity. And I know that families want to be able to sell units. I also know that we've got a wonderful development and design community who is coming up with plans that are excited about the opportunity to build multiple units on lots for people to come up with some more options for people to get into the market. The affordability piece is not really there. You know, I'm looking at Mayor Bodie's article that he published in the Sentinel in his own words this week. Richmond has exceeded, in the past 10 years, the number of new residential units in Richmond has exceeded our population growth by over 50%. In that same period, despite the increase in housing, average purchase prices have increased 77%. So, you know, the prices aren't going down. What we could end up with is prices that are similar to the $900 to $1 million condos that we already have for a smaller unit if we were going to do lots of smaller strata units, or they'll be in the about lot value for the bigger size units, so around 1.5 million to 1.8 million on a big lot. And we have a lot of housing coming on board with all of our townhouse developments and in that range. So, you know, if you want to live in a condo, live in a condo. Why Why convert a single-family lot into condo-sized packages and lose our light, lose the ecological sensitivity that we have? The reason why, we have our city design with the way we have it is because of our special ecological features and the fact that we can't have basements. So a multi-unit, an all-strata multi-unit development in a city where they can have basements, for example, that doesn't count into the floor area ratio or the 3 stories. So they've got that whole extra level underneath to store all their stuff, to have all that flex space. We don't have that in Richmond. So I've got a family who, I have my 2 stepsons and my sons, so we had a blended family. We had a much bigger family than we expected to have, and we've got a 1,500 square foot house for those 6 people, and the older ones have moved out now, but we use all the space that we've got. We've got our carport for all of our, the hockey gear, the lacrosse gear, the ski gear, the camping gear. We've got a shed for all the other stuff that we don't store in there. And I cannot imagine 4 family-friendly units on that one lot. Like, even though it's one of the bigger lots, it's not possible to live the way we live. So why are we eliminating all of the options for people to upsize into a livable space for larger families that need more outside space, that need more living space, and making it that we're going to be maximizing stratification in all of our single-family neighborhoods? And you know what? We might get there. We might get there after the review in 6 months, but why would we go ahead and permit stratification of the maximum that the provincial government put out for the whole province without looking at what we would do in Richmond if we were doing this on our own? If we said, you know what, let's start tackling the single family neighborhoods and let's start densifying. What we would have done is some duplexes with secondary suites. We would have done coach houses, especially where there's lanes. And we would have maybe looked at, that would be pretty bold for us because we hadn't done anything yet, maybe look at triplexes on the larger lots. So I think by saying we're going to let a minimum of 2 strata units on a lot and a maximum of 3 on the larger lots for now, and you can go up to your 6, so we're not doing the legislation, we're doing the legislation exactly, because you can go up to 4 or 6 units through secondary suites or mortgage helpers if that works for the pro forma. So I think that's a good starting place for stratification for the Richmond and the conditions that we have here. But I think we really have to work with the development community and listen to the development community about the height thing. I really think that 3 stories would be important to build some decent units. I'm okay with the 10 meters. I think that's a really good thing to aim for, and I think that we did a referral, Councillor Lube made a referral on that stuff, so we're going to be looking at the FAR and the height and everything else in the next few months, and we can work with the developers on what would 2 stratified units, what would 3 stratified units look like on our Richmond lots, come up with some pro formas, come up with some things and review it, and that way we're meeting the legislation and we're not just giving it all the way to strata right off the get-go. Thanks.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair. Well, I can see the intent of it, and it's not that I disagree with a lot that's been said on the amendment. And, the made in Richmond solution, I would have liked to see that too, but Bill 44 is what it is. But on this amendment, I think one of the things that's going to impact housing affordability or housing attainability, somewhat more attainable housing, is going to be the supply. And that's where Bill 44 maybe has some advantages in increasing the supply of housing. So, but the question I have on this for either the mover or maybe staff has to answer it, I don't know, that'll be up to the mover, is, does limiting the number of potential units on a small lot, the one below the 3,000 limit, or even the larger lots, does limiting the number of units on it likely increase the size of the unit? It could do that. And does that somehow impact the price in terms of raising the price? Because, it's a larger unit on a large lot. So I don't know if you can answer that, Councillor Day, or whether staff would have to
I think we
answer
should go to staff on that.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, probably a difficult question to fully answer. It will have some financial impact. Obviously, larger strata units will sell for more than smaller strata units. So if you allowed only 2, you would probably see a higher price point versus 4 smaller strata units.
Well, yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, again, on the amendment, you'd have bigger units, so.
Correct.
Not being a professional in this business, I would think that that could cost more. Okay, the other thing is, if you have fewer units that are somewhat larger, would that have any impact on the land price that you're paying? Because in the report, it talks about that. The economic analysis is that, it doesn't, as long as you kind of fit within certain parameters. If you affect the FAR or probably the size of the unit being built on the land. Mm-hmm. What's your opinion on that? Or maybe Councillor Day has an opinion too, I don't know.
If I could just point to page 2 of Mr. Hopkins' memo, it states that costs associated with SSMUH development may be up to 15% greater than for a basic single-family dwelling with or without a secondary suite. Limiting the amount of stratus doesn't mean it's going to limit the amount of units. I could see every single one of them having a secondary home or two because they need the mortgage helper. And like I showed earlier, I mean, this is the exact same house that we're talking about, and it's $16.5 million. I mean, sorry, 1 point.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and my last question is maybe a bit more philosophical or whatever, but Bill 44 is quite clear. So the question I have is, does this amendment kind of fly in the face of what Bill 44 is trying to achieve by actually putting a cap that's different than what it calls for?
Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, the provincial guidelines do indicate that suggest not to use or prohibit strata. And I guess the concern is from the provinces that prohibiting strata may limit the number of small or multiplexes that are built. I don't feel that this approach here that's being considered by council would fly directly in face of the provincial guidelines because strata is being permitted, perhaps maybe not fully. But there is permission for strata.
Sure. The aspect I'm actually referring to is more laser focused on us changing it from 3 to 2 and from us changing it from 4, 5, or 6 units to 3. Well, I thought it was limiting it on the lot, the small lot and the medium lot.
Just a minute. Hold it. Did you want to comment?
Sure. To your worship, just to clarify, my understanding is this isn't limiting the number of units that a property owner could build, but it is a limit on the number of strata units that could be built.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that.
Councillor Howe.
Your worship, I just want to ask questions for clarification so that I can understand the original motion and the amendment more correctly. I have the feeling that the amendment actually is contained in the original motion, in the sense that, now if my understanding is correct, if we allow 100% stratification, and in the case that the owner wants just want to stratify 2 out of 3, that's allowable, right? We don't stop them from doing that.
Through your worship to Councillor Howe, that is correct. If you allow all strata, the property owner has the option to either stratify all of them or just 2 of them or 3. Yeah.
Okay, then goes to the second part of the amendment. Now, assuming that, with 100 units, lots to be redeveloped, and in the case of, part B of the second part of the amendment, if 50 of those applicants want to go to the 100% certification, that means staff will receive 50 applications. And this would mean increased work for staff. Is that not the case?
Through your worship to Councillor Howe, I'm not sure if I completely understand the question. Is it related to just allowing stratification of multiplexes?
Okay, maybe I try to explain.
Sure.
Now, if you allow 100% certification, the developer has the owner has the option, right? Okay, I don't want to have 100%, and I would only like to do 2 out of 3. And they don't have to do anything. They don't have to apply to the city saying that they want to do it. Basically, just tell us, I only want 2 out of 3.
Right.
But in the situation as proposed in the amendment, part 2, when an owner really wants to go beyond the 2 out of 3 and say, I want 100%, I want all the 3 units to be stratified, That means they have to do an application, and that will be considered on a case-to-case basis. And that means, number one, they have to apply. Number two, council has to consider and make a decision. So my thinking is that will increase workload for staff and for council as well.
Yeah, through your worship, Councillor Howe, thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, that's correct. If there is a case-by-case applications, that would take up more staff time. That's correct.
Right, exactly. So in that case, we are not only putting more hurdles, but also we are taking up staff time and probably, I don't know, that's not the best use of time and resources of the city. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. We're actually almost into the whole discussion on it. And unfortunately, I think we're beginning to act like the provincial government and being prescriptive with no metrics to back things up. I don't know what the number would be, but owners can come forward to council any time on it. I'm not going to support this amendment because owners can come forward, as Councillor Al was alluding, it's already in here, whether it's coming for stratification or it's coming for rental, whatever. I think we need, as I said earlier, a process to encourage rental. We haven't encouraged coach houses. We had them on the books for a long time. We haven't encouraged secondary suites. We haven't encouraged row houses. We haven't encouraged anything, but we've criticized a lot. And if we don't watch it, nothing will happen. And the provincial government has thrown stuff at us, and I think we need to push back. The one good thing they've come up with, they said stratification is good. Actually, if you read Bill 44 and 47, it almost says 100% stratification. They talk about FAR and bonusing. Stratification isn't going to do it alone. These are parallels. We need bonusing. We need increased FAR. The reason they put one of the bills forward is get rid of bureaucracy and the development permit and the red tape and the 7 years it takes to get a single family lot divided into two. That's what we should be focusing on. The length of time, then we can have affordable housing. We can also encourage rental housing. One of the things I looked tonight, and I think and I agree with in Richmond, we need to push back, but one size doesn't fit all, like it came from Victoria. We have to be rational about what we're trying to do. We have a number of people that came here tonight. They're our bread and butter. They're not the investors. These are the builders that are here tonight. And I was told, and I love the words, 3 words: feasibility, constructability, incentive, and I use the word encouragement. That's what we need to do if we want to get rental housing. And I think we need to look at that. And no matter what we arrive on tonight, Your Worship, I think we leave the doors open. There are a lot of shortcomings in here and in the paper we have, everything from height, setbacks, sizes of the lot, the garage. A current person on a 50 by 100, and I'll use my lot, I have a 26-foot setback in the front, and I have 40 feet in the back. Okay, and the house is plopped right in the middle, a good old Seafair Special built in 1959. I don't know what I can put in the front. I might be able to get a bungalow in the back, a coach house, okay, and on it, but I can't move my main house. So I think, Your Worship, we should satisfy what Victoria needs, and I think we should be making referrals to get to, not, and I don't call them rules, guidelines by which we want to continue development in the community, not only for units that people want to get market rental or in the various aspects of rental, and may want to purchase units. But I think it's important that we move along in that direction. I'm not sure what resolution tonight we can go back and forth, changing from 1 to 2, hearing what it is. We haven't consulted with the building community yet. We should have done that first before we came forward, in my opinion. I always think we need to find out UDI and the various others. We don't have to agree with them, but we should have heard them before we start putting our 9 of us, our brand on it and our Band-Aids on it, because I don't think I'm qualified enough to do it without further information, to be quite frank with you. And I don't think the provincial government is qualified enough to come out with what they've done. So let's see where we go from here.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor McNulty said something important there, need for consultation. Well, on the fly at the General Purposes Committee meeting last week, we switched what staff put extensive work into and said, oh, let's make this 100%, no limit, everybody can stratify to the max. That was on the fly, that was uncalled for, and that is what this amendment on the floor is trying to curl back, kind of bring back to what staff have done for us. Look at the staff report that came to General Purposes. The RSM zone, which is the new zone that we're talking about here, restricts tenure of additional dwelling units to rental. The last part of that paragraph says, this is consistent with the city objectives to build more rental housing. So staff have already looked at what Bill 44 asks us to do. They gave us recommendation that was not going any opposite way. It was abiding by that, and it allows what is in this amendment number 2, which is kind of redundant because there is always case-by-case basis, like OCP amendments and all that stuff. So we're really just specifying, I guess, in this amendment that you can get to that maximum number of stratification if the owner wants to go through that process. Yeah, so staff have done their job, and some on council, I don't know what they're doing.
Just before I go back to Councillor Day to wrap it up, just a minute. I think that the amendment encapsulates what the delegation told us. They said the maximum number of units is 3. That's what's going to happen. Now, if we go to some higher number and find out it's unworkable in some way, it's going to be difficult to go back to 3. So I think that what we do is we support this amendment, making it 2 or 3 strata units, depending on the size of the lot, and review it after 6 months. And if some party feels that they really want to have something else, some higher number, they can make that application. I do note that there are referrals out. We're going to be talking more about the massing, the densities, the heights, various other issues on this in the months to come. But as I say, I think by supporting this amendment, this is exactly what the delegation told us would be the realistic maximum. Nobody's going to build 6 strata units. And so let's have a little reason in the situation and limit it to 2 or 3, apply for more if you want, and we'll review it after 6 months. Councillor Day.
Thank you, I'll be quick. We got a fantastic memo from staff, and it went over all of our questions, and it answered what would happen if we went with 100% strata. And it says, and I quote, allowing 100% stratification would discourage construction of new rental units and would be difficult to reintroduce stratification, reintroduce lower stratifications in the future. It also said in there that having 2 owners on smaller size lot reduces the possibility of disputes over repairs, maintenance, because they'll be informally managed as per the Strata Property Act, same as duplexes are now. And then the other thing I just wanted to say is, and this is also from staff, there is no legal requirement to follow everything in the provincial guidelines, but they must be considered. We've considered them. And I worry that if we go with 100% stratification, there's no going back. And this might be a kettle of fish we just don't want to open. So I ask you to please support the amendment to the motion.
All right, so we're going to call the question on the amendment. I think everybody's got the wording of it. All those in favor? Those opposed? So that is defeated. Councillors Al, McNulty, Liu, Hobbs, and Heed are opposed. We're back on the main motion. I think we beat it to death. Let's call the question on the main motion, which would be in the terms that I originally introduced it. Have you not already commented on the main?
The main motion, no.
Okay, but then I'm going to call the question.
No, I'm speaking to the main motion.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the reason why I need to vote against this is because if we think it's possible to build 3 or 4 max units decently in our neighborhoods in Richmond, then why would we permit stratification of 6? We got a letter today from somebody who asked, when will I be able to build a 6-unit townhome on my lot? I'm zoned for the area where I can do 6. I want to do 6 townhouse units. So why would we put it in there, like, go ahead and do it, just assuming that it's not going to happen? Why wouldn't we make a bylaw for 3 or 4 strata units to encourage that when that's the type of development that we want?
Okay,
Crazy.
thank you. I think we've been through that on the amendment, Councillor. So with that, on the main question, as I introduced it originally, all those in favor? Those opposed? So that is carried with Councillors Galanders, Day, Wolf opposed. Okay, but I would like to introduce one more thing. I would like to have that review in 6 months. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. So, moving on with our agenda, we'll go to Public Works. It's the award of contract for the bike reuse pilot program. Councillor Day, who is Chair of Public Works.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Bodie. This is the award of contract 8225Q for the bike reuse pilot program. This program would be for 1 year for a total cost of $91,000. The money will come from the general solid waste and recycling provisions, and I so move it. I won't be supporting it.
So that's moved, and is it seconded? Seconded. Did you want to comment some more?
Yeah, I actually wanted staff to come forward because we had quite a few questions in committee about this, and after reading this report, I was a little concerned. That's why I didn't support it, and I went online and found 2 different places where we could donate the bikes for free, whereas this proposal gives Pedal Foundation $82,269 for 1 year, and we would also have to spend $9,000 on a shipping container to store the bikes. But you were going to come back with some more information today, so I wanted to alleviate my concerns.
Through your worship to Councillor Day, staff have prepared a memo. We will be issuing that shortly. We were just unable to make contact with Vancouver and Metro Vancouver in time to get it out before council. But feedback from both Vancouver and Metro Vancouver, who have current programs running for bike reuse, have shared that the level of service they've received from the volunteer-run organizations has been inconsistent, which has posed operational challenges such as bikes being stored, extensive storage space required, resulting in frames rusting, and ultimately these bikes being sent for recycling and not being able to be reused.
Okay, and what about, I located just in a quick look online, both Richmond and Surrey school districts have a bike repair program as well.
Through your worship to Councillor Day, we did make contact with the school district, and they did share that the program that you, in the news article, is no longer active at this time. They have expressed interest in working with, or interest in working with the city to put together programs, but these types of programs would not be able to handle the amounts that we're receiving at the recycling depot at this time.
Okay, and then I asked it's pretty easy to tell a bike that's just had it and should be recycled for scrap metal and one that's got lots of life left in it. why couldn't we just put those bikes out in a separate area and allow the public to take them and repurpose them?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, we do have a no scavenging section in our current bylaws, so we'd be in contravention of that. There would also be concerns for liabilities with residents taking items from the recycling depot, because once an item is deposited at the recycling depot, it does become property of the city.
Maybe we need to change that bylaw. Okay, I'll stand back. Thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you. Quick question of staff, or even of the chair. So if a bike comes to the workyard, it's thrown into the metal heap, is it not?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, that's correct.
Bike. And the bike usually comes if it's dilapidated, not functional, and nobody wants it, because they haven't picked it up from the side of the road where the people would put it out at the end of the driveway and didn't feel it was worthwhile, right?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, we would hope that residents are only bringing these bikes to the recycling depot at the end of their life. However, it is a very public location and people know that they can drop it off there. So we do encourage our residents to look for other opportunities for donation in the community before it comes to the recycling depot.
Do we know from this company how many bikes they're theoretically able to rehabilitate, and will they be bringing them back to Richmond so that we can give them to people that don't have bikes?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, in conversation with Vancouver and Metro Vancouver, they shared that roughly 20 to 30% of the bikes that are collected by these organizations are able to be refurbished and reused.
20%. And they are going to come back to Richmond, and we'll be able to say to people, and maybe we'll distribute from the workyard, except in the parking lot. We have 25 bikes that are usable, and first come, first serve, or if you haven't got a bike, we can go to the food bank and talk to families there, and we'll be able to give them the bike.
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, it's not exclusive for Richmond only. They do have organizations throughout the Lower Mainland. They will be coming to the Richmond Homeless Connect events to connect with individuals experiencing financial hardship that may need a bike here.
Well, for the $100,000 they're getting for 1 year, would they come to the food bank maybe and see how many people might want a bike?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, that's not something we exclusively discussed with them, but if Council should wish, we can put that request forward.
Well, I have a little trouble with us giving $100,000 to a group that's not going to Richmond and to Richmond people. I appreciate the nobility of it, but it could be $500,000 in 5 years, and there's no benefit to our own people. I think, I had a little difficulty, goes on Zoom, not hearing everybody, but I heard a comment that we could go to Costco for that kind of money and buy 100 new bikes and pass them out within our community and still recycle our other bikes. So I just wondered the viability of this. I'm not quite clear on it, but thank you.
Councillor Glanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. You know, I've had a lot of people ask me, why can't we bring our bikes to the city works yard, and why can't there be a place where we can grab parts from one bike to put on the other bike? We've got a lot of really handy people in this community that work on bikes in their garages, and I thought we had an outstanding referral on that. I don't know if this was a response to that referral, but maybe we had just discussed it. So I think it's a really good idea to refer this back. I think it's a good start, but maybe we should look at other options and other models where it could be more of a community bike reusing program in Richmond.
The question is, what other options have been explored?
Your Worship, we have looked at, we have reached out to local thrift stores and bike stores in Richmond. They have been supportive of this initiative, but they currently don't have the capacity to handle the amount of bikes that we would be receiving at the recycling depot. Yes.
So you have looked at the alternatives?
We have, correct.
Yeah, so I'm thinking more of a space on some city-owned land where we could develop our own program as opposed to farming it out to a little bike shop, because we've got city land where we could do it. So I think we need to look at that in a referral back.
Okay, thank you. All right, you're making a referral motion, the
Yes.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Moved and seconded. Okay, well, Councillor Day, is this on the referral?
Yeah, I think we do need to refer this back. I was really uncomfortable, and staff just said that the report says there's 500 bikes per year, but how many can actually be repurposed is what Councillor McNulty asked, about 100, 20%. Well, 100 bikes for $91,000 is a pretty big bill. And we all know Mr. Ken Frail. Well, he occasionally takes a few of those bikes, he repurposes them, and he drops them off at the charities. So it can be done. To be honest, it is being done. I know you're not supposed to scavenge, but I think that if we look at a broader range of options, we can come up with something a little more practical than $445,309 over 5 years.
Yes, thank you. I do not support the referring this back. I supported this at Public Works and Transportation Committee, mainly because of what the data speaks to. There's a need to start this now. 10 to 15 bikes every week are going there. And I've personally never met a bike that I can't get back on the road. And I'm not a handy person, but I can make things work, put things together. Unless it's been run over by a semi-truck, you can make repairs. This organization has charitable status. It's a non-profit. We're not giving money away for a bad cause or anything. This is all good. Even if it doesn't, all these bikes don't end up on Richmond streets. They're still focused on giving them to people in need. This already exists. This organization already has partnerships with Vancouver and the Zero Waste Center they have there. We heard from staff. They also partner with Metro Vancouver and their bike share setup on the North Shore. We can't rely on teachers and the school district to do this. It'll come and go in waves, but it's not going to be consistent there. Yes, the city has land that we could put this on Rice Mill Road, and the thing is, this is a 1-year pilot. I wish it was a 5-year, but after 1 year, staff will come back and report out how well it's done, how many bikes have made it into Richmond. Should we give this group more of this type of contract or not? That's a good thing. Thanks.
Councillor Hobbs.
Oh, thanks through the chair. Councillor Wolf just confirmed what I thought I heard at Public Works. I'm not on that committee, but I thought it was a 1-year project that they were going to review at the end and kind of keep tabs on it as we went.
It was originally stated to then carry on, and that was taken out. So it's a 1-year deal.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to call the question then on referral. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. Those opposed? So that is defeated with Councillors Wolf, Liu, Hobbs, Heed, and the mayor opposed. And I'm going to call the question, I'll separate 1 and 2. All those in favor of part 1? Those opposed? That's carried with Councillors McNulty and Day opposed. And on part 2, all those in favor? Those opposed? Same vote as Councillors Day and McNulty opposed. Then we have the 2023 annual report and the report highlights. May I have a motion?
Recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor, opposed, carried. The council remuneration and expenses. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Statement of financial information. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, any opposed, that's carried. Brings us to public announcements. Happy to say that we have appointed a nominee to the Econ Board. Councillor Heed was renominated to the Board of the Emergency Communications of Southwest British Columbia. In all seriousness, that's a really important task this coming year because of the financial consequences and the changes in the technology. So thanks for that. We have the Stevenson Salmon Festival that's coming up, 77th edition. The one-day community-wide celebration kicks off at 9:30 with the kids' bike parade, followed by the official parade at 10 a.m. from Gary Point Park to Moncton and Railway. There's a major highlight of the festival the salmon bake as well as the pancake breakfast beginning at 8 a.m. at the Stevenson Community Center parking lot, along with food trucks and other vendors. Unfortunately, we are not going to be having any fireworks on Canada Day. In accordance with the city bylaws, fireworks are not permitted anywhere within the city of Richmond without a permit from the Richmond Fire Rescue. Then we have the $29 summer active pass. The popular $29 active pass is back. Residents age 5 to 18 can buy an unlimited use pass with access to select drop-in swimming and fitness classes across Richmond for just $29. The pass is valid through to September, so go to the website for more detail. And in conjunction with July 1st, a reminder, the City Hall will close for in-person services on Monday, July 1st. People can still access a range of online activities and services through our website or My Richmond app. And finally, the property tax deadline. The property tax deadline is now set for Tuesday, July 2nd. Taxes not paid by this date will be subject to penalties. Payment can be made in person at City Hall, at your bank or credit union, or online via My Richmond. Cash is not accepted for payment at City Hall. If a portion of your taxes is covered by the homeowner grant, you'll also need to apply directly to the province for your grant by the deadline to avoid penalties. It's important to bear that one in mind because for the longest time, the city did all the administration on that. Now you've got to go directly to the province via online. So for more information on that one, go to the city website. Madam Clerk, we have a bylaw for second and third reading.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, this is the Development Cost Charges Imposition Bylaw number 9499.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried.
Move the remaining two.
There's three.
Three, I should say.
All right, so all three are moved and seconded. Discussion? Councillor Wolf?
There's opposition to one of them.
Okay, so that's on the first one, I presume. Okay, we'll call the question on that one separately. All right, so on that first one, which is bylaw 10-495, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried with Councillor Wolf opposed. And on the following two? No, they're already on the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Someone move adjournment. Thank you. We're now